Avoidant attachment exists not as a single monolithic pattern, but as a complex spectrum spanning 5 distinct levels of emotional defense and relationship capacity, each representing different degrees of self-protection and intimacy avoidance that profoundly impact how individuals navigate love, connection, and vulnerability. Understanding these levels reveals that avoidant attachment operates like a psychological defense system with multiple layers of protection, from the mildly defensive to the completely emotionally fortified, each level representing different challenges and possibilities for meaningful relationship development. These 5 levels function as graduated responses to attachment trauma, with each progressive level indicating deeper wounding and more sophisticated defensive strategies designed to prevent emotional pain while simultaneously creating the very isolation and disconnection that perpetuates their original wounds. Recognizing which level an avoidant individual operates from provides crucial insight into their relationship capacity, healing potential, and the specific approaches that might successfully reach their defended heart without triggering further withdrawal into even deeper levels of emotional protection. Level 1. The mildly defended. Surface scratches on a tender heart. At the first level of avoidant attachment, we encounter individuals whose defensive strategies are like thin veils rather than fortress walls, present but penetrable, protective yet permeable to genuine connection when approached with patience and understanding. These souls carry surface wounds that have not yet penetrated to their core, leaving them capable of authentic intimacy when conditions feel safe and non-threatening to their still accessible emotional centers. Level 1 avoidants experience discomfort with emotional intensity rather than terror, preferring emotional moderation to overwhelming expressions of feeling while remaining capable of genuine emotional exchange when approached with gentle consistency. Their defensive mechanisms activate during moments of high emotional stakes, during conflicts, major relationship decisions, or expressions of deep vulnerability, but they can return to emotional availability once their nervous system settles and safety is reestablished. These individuals demonstrate capacity for emotional growth within relationships, showing ability to recognize their defensive patterns and make conscious efforts to remain present during challenging emotional moments. They may retreat temporarily when overwhelmed, but they possess the internal resources to return to connection rather than disappearing permanently behind walls of self-protection. Their attachment wounds stem from less severe early experiences, perhaps inconsistent emotional availability from caregivers rather than outright neglect or trauma, creating learned patterns of self-reliance without completely destroying their faith in the possibility of safe emotional connection. They learn to protect themselves without learning that protection requires complete emotional shutdown. Level 1 avoidance can engage in future planning discussions, express genuine care for their partner's emotional well-being, and participate in relationship repair after conflicts, though they may need time and space to process intense emotions before they can engage authentically. Their defensive retreats are temporary adjustments rather than permanent departures from emotional intimacy. The healing potential for level 1 avoidance remains high because their defensive structures haven't yet calcified into impenetrable barriers. With consistent patient love that respects their need for emotional pacing, they can develop secure attachment patterns and learn to associate vulnerability with safety rather than danger. Their wounds are like fresh cuts that can heal cleanly with proper care. Their relationships often succeed when partnered with secure individuals who understand their need for emotional space without interpreting it as rejection, who can maintain their own emotional stability while their level 1 avoidant partner processes challenging feelings. These partnerships require emotional intelligence, but not superhuman patience or accommodation of severely dysfunctional patterns. Level 2. The cautious guardians. Selective vulnerability. Level 2, avoidants operate with more sophisticated defensive systems that allow carefully controlled emotional intimacy while maintaining significant protective barriers around their deepest emotional experiences. These individuals have learned to open their hearts selectively, offering measured portions of themselves while keeping their most vulnerable places safely guarded behind psychological walls. Their emotional availability follows predictable patterns of approach and retreat, like tides that advance and recede according to their internal emotional weather systems. They can engage in meaningful emotional connection during calm periods, but instinctively withdraw when relationship intensity reaches levels that trigger their attachment fears or threaten their sense of emotional safety and autonomy. Level 2, avoidants demonstrate capacity for emotional intimacy within specific parameters. They can express care, engage in conflict resolution, and participate in relationship planning while maintaining clear boundaries around their emotional exposure. Their love is genuine but rationed, offered in careful doses that won't overwhelm their capacity to maintain psychological equilibrium. These individuals excel at compartmentalization, maintaining successful professional lives and friendships while struggling with the sustained emotional availability that intimate romantic relationships require. They can be emotionally present in structured contexts, but find the unpredictable emotional demands of deep partnership challenging to navigate without periodic withdrawals for emotional regulation. Their attachment wounds often stem from early experiences of emotional engulfment, criticism, or inconsistent caregiving that taught them to associate emotional openness with loss of autonomy or overwhelming responsibility for others' emotional states. They learn to love carefully, measuring their emotional investments to avoid the devastating losses they witnessed or experienced. Level 2, avoidants require partners who understand their emotional rhythms and can maintain secure attachment even during periods of withdrawal. Recognizing that their partner's retreat represents emotional regulation rather than relationship rejection. These relationships succeed when both partners develop emotional intelligence about avoidant patterns and secure attachment responses. Their healing potential remains significant but requires more intentional therapeutic work to address underlying attachment fears and develop greater emotional regulation capacity. With appropriate support, Level 2 avoidants can learn to expand their comfort zones and increase their capacity for sustained emotional intimacy without overwhelming their nervous systems. The key to reaching Level 2 avoidance lies in consistency without pressure, emotional availability without demands, and patience that operates on their timeline rather than forcing acceleration of intimacy development. They need partners who can appreciate partial emotional availability while maintaining hope for gradual expansion of intimacy capacity. Level 3, the strategic withdrawals, calculated distance. At level 3, avoidant attachment becomes a sophisticated art form where emotional distance is carefully calculated and maintained through complex strategies designed to maximize connection while minimizing vulnerability. These individuals have developed intricate systems for managing relationships that allow them to experience companionship and even love while avoiding the depths of emotional intimacy that trigger their deepest fears. Level 3 avoidants excel at creating relationships that feel meaningful while maintaining escape routes, developing emotional connections that provide satisfaction without requiring complete vulnerability. They master the art of being emotionally present enough to maintain partnership while remaining sufficiently defended to protect themselves from the complete emotional exposure that terrifies them. Their defensive strategies include sophisticated emotional regulation techniques, relationship compartmentalization, and carefully managed emotional disclosure that creates intimacy illusions while protecting their core emotional self from potential harm. They can appear emotionally available while maintaining significant internal distance, from their deepest feelings and fears. These individuals often succeed in long-term relationships by finding partners who either share their preference for emotional distance or who are willing to accept limited emotional intimacy in exchange for other relationship benefits. Their partnerships may lack emotional depth, but can provide stability, companionship, and mutual support within acceptable intimacy parameters. Level 3 avoidants typically possess high levels of self-awareness about their attachment patterns, but struggle to modify them despite recognizing their limitations. They understand intellectually that their defensive strategies prevent deeper connection, while feeling emotionally unable to risk the vulnerability that greater intimacy would require. Their attachment wounds stem from more significant early trauma, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, severe neglect, or witnessing traumatic events that taught them to associate emotional openness with danger. These experiences created deep-seated beliefs that vulnerability leads to pain and that emotional self-protection is essential for survival. The healing potential for level 3 avoidance requires intensive therapeutic intervention to address underlying trauma and develop new neural pathways that associate vulnerability with safety rather than danger. Their defensive patterns have become deeply entrenched and require professional support to modify successfully. Relationships with level 3 avoidance can succeed, but require partners with exceptional emotional intelligence, secure attachment, and realistic expectations about the pace and extent of emotional development possible. These partnerships often involve accepting significant limitations while supporting gradual growth over extended timeframes. The approach to level 3 avoidance must respect their need for control while creating opportunities for safe emotional exploration. Therapeutic interventions like EMDR, somatic therapy, or attachment-focused therapy may be necessary to address the deeper wounds that maintain their defensive patterns. Level 4, the fortress builders, emotional isolation. Level 4, avoidants have constructed elaborate psychological fortresses designed to prevent emotional intrusion while maintaining the appearance of relationship participation. These individuals operate from behind massive defensive walls that allow minimal, authentic emotional exchange while preserving their sense of safety through near-complete emotional isolation from others. Their emotional lives resemble heavily guarded castles where visitors are allowed into the outer courtyards but never permitted to approach the keep where their authentic self resides in protected isolation. They can engage in relationship behaviors, sharing activities, providing practical support, even physical intimacy, while keeping their emotional core completely inaccessible to their partners. Level 4 avoidants often appear to be in relationships while remaining fundamentally alone, using their partnerships to meet practical and social needs, while avoiding the emotional intimacy that would require them to lower their defensive barriers. They excel at creating relationship facades that satisfy social expectations while protecting them from genuine emotional connection. These individuals have typically experienced severe attachment trauma that taught them to associate emotional openness with existential threat. Their defensive strategies represent sophisticated survival mechanisms developed in response to environments where emotional vulnerability resulted in devastating harm, abandonment, or exploitation. Their capacity for emotional growth remains limited without intensive therapeutic intervention because their defensive systems have become integral to their identity and survival strategy. They often resist therapeutic exploration because examining their emotional patterns feels dangerous to their carefully constructed psychological safety systems. Level 4 avoidants may maintain long-term relationships with partners who either share their preference for emotional distance or who unconsciously enable their avoidant patterns by not demanding genuine emotional intimacy. These relationships can provide stability and companionship while remaining emotionally sterile. The partners of level 4 avoidance often experience chronic emotional starvation and may develop their own psychological symptoms as they attempt to connect with someone who is fundamentally unavailable for authentic, emotional exchange. These relationships frequently involve codependent patterns or emotional neglect. Therapeutic intervention for level 4 avoidance requires specialized approaches that can address severe attachment trauma while respecting their need for psychological safety. Treatment often involves building basic trust with therapeutic providers before any exploration of attachment patterns or emotional development can occur. The healing potential exists but requires long-term commitment to therapeutic work that addresses both the original trauma and the defensive patterns that have developed over decades of emotional self-protection. Progress occurs slowly and requires tremendous patience from both therapeutic providers and any romantic partners. Level 5, the emotional ghosts, complete disconnection. At level 5, avoidant attachment reaches its most extreme manifestation, where individuals have achieved near complete disconnection from their emotional selves and others, existing like emotional ghosts who move through relationships without genuine presence or authentic connection. These souls have learned to survive by becoming emotionally invisible, even to themselves. Level 5. Avoidants have perfected the art of emotional non-existence, developing the capacity to participate in relationships, careers, and social activities while remaining fundamentally absent from their own emotional experience. They can go through the motions of human connection while feeling internally empty, disconnected, and isolated, even in the presence of others. Their emotional numbing has become so complete that they often struggle to identify their own feelings, needs, or desires, having suppressed their emotional selves so thoroughly that accessing authentic emotions feels foreign and threatening. They exist in a state of chronic dissociation from their inner world. These individuals typically experience severe early trauma, often including abuse, severe neglect, or witnessing extreme violence that made emotional numbing a survival necessity. Their disconnection represents their psyche's attempt to protect them from overwhelming pain by shutting down their emotional systems entirely. Level 5 avoidants often appear successful in external ways. They may excel professionally, maintain social connections, and even sustain long-term relationships while remaining internally barren and emotionally inaccessible. Their success masks profound inner emptiness and disconnection from authentic human experience. Their relationships resemble elaborate performances where they play the role of partner, friend, or family member without genuine emotional investment or authentic presence. They can provide practical support and maintain relationship behaviors while remaining emotionally absent from the connections they appear to maintain. Partners of level 5 avoidance often struggle with feeling like they are in relationship with a person who is not really there, experiencing chronic loneliness and confusion about why someone who appears to care seems fundamentally unreachable. These relationships often involve significant emotional neglect and confusion. The therapeutic challenges with level 5 avoidance are immense because their disconnection from their emotional selves makes traditional talk therapy approaches ineffective. Treatment often requires somatic approaches, trauma-informed therapy, or other specialized interventions that can address their dissociative defenses. Healing potential exists, but requires extraordinary therapeutic skill and long-term commitment to addressing layers of trauma and dissociation that have become fundamental to their psychological functioning. Recovery involves rebuilding basic emotional awareness and capacity that was lost or suppressed decades earlier. The progression and regression between levels. Understanding avoidant attachment levels requires recognizing that individuals can move between levels based on stress, therapeutic intervention, relationship experiences, and life circumstances. The levels represent not fixed categories, but fluid states that can shift in response to various internal and external factors. Progression toward lower levels typically occurs through therapeutic healing, secure relationship experiences, or life events that challenge existing defensive patterns while providing safety for emotional exploration. Individual therapy, couples counseling, or transformative relationships can facilitate movement toward greater emotional availability. Regression toward higher levels often results from trauma, relationship betrayal, major life stresses, or experiences that confirm their fears about emotional vulnerability. Individuals who have made progress can retreat to higher defensive levels when their sense of safety is threatened or when their healing is incomplete. The movement between levels follows predictable patterns based on stress levels, relationship dynamics, and available support systems. Understanding these patterns helps predict when individuals might be more or less accessible for emotional connection or therapeutic intervention. Environmental factors play crucial roles in determining which level an avoidant individual operates from at any given time. Supportive, consistent relationships tend to facilitate movement toward lower levels, while chaotic, threatening environments often trigger regression to higher defensive levels. Therapeutic intervention can facilitate progression between levels, but the process requires time, skill, and approaches specifically designed for avoidant attachment patterns. Traditional therapeutic approaches may be ineffective or even counterproductive with higher level avoidant individuals who require specialized trauma-informed treatment. The relationship implications of each level. Each level of avoidant attachment creates different relationship dynamics and requires different approaches for successful partnership. Understanding these implications helps potential partners assess compatibility and develop appropriate relationship strategies. Level 1 relationships can develop into secure, satisfying partnerships with patience and emotional intelligence from both partners. These relationships have high success potential when both individuals commit to growth and understanding of attachment patterns. Level 2 relationships require partners with secure attachment who can maintain their emotional stability during periods of avoidant withdrawal while providing consistent, non-demanding emotional availability. Success depends on realistic expectations and appreciation for gradual emotional development. Level 3 relationships challenge partners to accept significant emotional limitations while supporting therapeutic growth. These partnerships often require professional support and exceptional emotional maturity from the non-avoidant partner to navigate the complex dynamics successfully. Level 4 relationships typically involve chronic emotional neglect and require partners to either accept severe intimacy limitations or encourage intensive therapeutic intervention. These relationships often develop codependent patterns or require significant accommodation of dysfunctional dynamics. Level 5 relationships present extreme challenges and often result in emotional starvation for partners seeking genuine intimacy. These relationships typically require therapeutic intervention for both partners and may not be sustainable without significant healing and growth. The therapeutic approaches for each level. Different levels of avoidant attachment require specialized therapeutic approaches that match the individual's capacity for emotional exploration and change. Understanding these treatment needs helps both individuals and their partners make informed decisions about seeking professional support. Level 1 avoidants often benefit from individual therapy focused on attachment patterns, communication skills, and gradual emotional development. Couples therapy can also be highly effective in supporting relationship growth and understanding of attachment dynamics. Level 2. Individuals typically require longer-term therapeutic work that addresses underlying attachment fears while building emotional regulation skills. Attachment-focused therapy, Emotionally focused therapy or cognitive behavioral approaches may be effective with consistent therapeutic engagement. Level 3 avoidants need intensive therapy that addresses underlying trauma while building basic trust and emotional safety. Treatment may require trauma-informed approaches like EMDR, somatic therapy, or other specialized interventions that can address deeper attachment wounds. Level 4, individuals require highly specialized therapeutic approaches that can work with severe attachment trauma and entrenched defensive patterns. Treatment often involves building basic therapeutic relationships before any attachment exploration can occur safely. Level 5, avoidants present complex therapeutic challenges that require specialized expertise in trauma, dissociation, and severe attachment disruption. Treatment may require years of intensive work with therapists trained in working with complex trauma and attachment disorders. The hope for healing across all levels. Despite the significant challenges presented by higher levels of avoidant attachment, healing remains possible across all levels with appropriate therapeutic intervention, supportive relationships, and individual commitment to growth. Understanding the healing potential for each level provides hope while maintaining realistic expectations about the time and effort required. The neuroplasticity of the human brain means that even deeply entrenched attachment patterns can change with appropriate intervention and support. New neural pathways can be developed that associate vulnerability with safety rather than danger, though the process requires time and specialized approaches. Healing occurs through corrective emotional experiences that gradually challenge the defensive patterns while providing safety for emotional exploration. These experiences can occur in therapeutic relationships, romantic partnerships, or other significant relationships that provide consistent safety and understanding. The process of healing involves not just changing behaviors, but rebuilding fundamental beliefs about safety, love, and human connection that were damaged through early attachment experiences. This reconstruction requires patience, consistency, and often professional guidance to navigate successfully. Recovery from avoidant attachment represents not just personal healing, but the development of capacity for the kind of authentic human connection that enriches not only individual lives, but entire communities. Each person who heals their attachment wounds contributes to creating a world where emotional safety and genuine intimacy become more possible for everyone. The neurobiological foundations of avoidant levels. Each level of avoidant attachment corresponds to specific neurobiological patterns that reflect the degree of nervous system dysregulation and trauma response activation present in the individual's psychological makeup. Understanding these biological foundations reveals why different levels require different therapeutic approaches and why healing occurs at different rates across the spectrum. Level 1 avoidants typically maintain relatively intact nervous system regulation with mild hypervigilance that activates only during specific relationship stresses. Their autonomic nervous system can return to baseline functioning relatively quickly after defensive activation, allowing for repair and reconnection within reasonable timeframes. Level 2 individuals demonstrate moderate nervous system dysregulation with more persistent hypervigilance and slower recovery times from activation. Their stress response systems remain more chronically elevated, requiring longer periods to process and integrate emotional experiences before they can return to emotional availability. Level 3 avoidants show significant nervous system disruption with chronic hypervigilance, elevated baseline stress hormones, and difficulty with emotional regulation that persists across multiple life areas. Their trauma responses have become generalized beyond romantic relationships into broader life functioning. Level 4. Individuals exhibit severe nervous system dysregulation with chronic dissociation, emotional numbing, and autonomic nervous system dysfunction that affects their ability to access authentic emotions or form genuine connections. Their biological stress systems have become chronically overwhelmed and shut down. Level 5, avoidants, demonstrate profound neurobiological disruption with severe dissociative responses, complete emotional disconnection, and autonomic nervous system collapse that creates the appearance of calm while indicating internal emotional death and disconnection from bodily sensations and emotional awareness. These neurobiological patterns explain why higher level avoidants require specialized trauma informed therapeutic approaches that can address nervous system dysregulation before attempting to work on attachment patterns or relationship skills. Traditional talk therapy approaches may be ineffective or even harmful for individuals operating from higher levels of avoidant defense. The developmental trauma correlations. Each level of avoidant attachment typically correlates with specific types and severities of developmental trauma that shape the individual's attachment system during critical early development periods. Understanding these trauma correlations helps explain the defensive strategies and provides insight into appropriate healing approaches. Level 1 avoidants often experience mild inconsistency in early caregiving, perhaps emotional unavailability during stress periods, inconsistent responsiveness to emotional needs, or caregivers who were loving but struggled with their own emotional regulation. These experiences created learned self-reliance without destroying basic trust in human goodness. Level 2. Individuals typically experienced more significant caregiver inconsistency, emotional criticism, or early loss that taught them to approach relationships with caution while maintaining hope for connection. Their trauma often involved emotional invalidation or caregivers who were overwhelmed by their own issues, but not intentionally harmful. Level 3 avoidants usually experienced more severe trauma, including emotional abuse, physical neglect, witnessing domestic violence, or having caregivers with serious mental health or substance abuse issues. These experiences taught them that emotional vulnerability leads to pain and that self-protection is essential for survival. Level 4. Individuals often survived severe childhood trauma, including physical or sexual abuse, severe neglect, multiple caregiver losses, or growing up in chaotic environments where emotional safety was non-existent. Their defensive strategies represent sophisticated survival mechanisms developed under extreme circumstances. Level 5 avoidants typically experience the most severe early trauma, including severe abuse, witnessing extreme violence, or experiencing trauma so overwhelming that complete emotional shutdown became necessary for psychological survival. Their disconnection represents their psyche's attempt to survive unsurvivable circumstances. Understanding these trauma correlations helps explain why different levels require different therapeutic approaches and why healing timelines vary so dramatically. Higher levels of avoidant attachment often require specialized trauma treatment before attachment work can begin safely. The social and professional functioning patterns. Different levels of avoidant attachment create distinct patterns of social and professional functioning that reflect the individual's capacity for emotional connection and their strategies for meeting human needs while maintaining emotional protection. These patterns help identify which level someone operates from based on their broader life functioning. Level 1 avoidants typically maintain satisfying friendships, succeed professionally, and engage meaningfully in community activities while experiencing mild difficulties only in their most intimate relationships. Their defensive strategies are specific to romantic intimacy rather than generalized across all relationships. Level 2 individuals often excel professionally and maintain some meaningful friendships while struggling with sustained intimacy across multiple relationship types. They may have difficulty with deeper friendships and find themselves maintaining more surface level connections across their social networks. Level 3 avoidants frequently achieve high professional success while maintaining limited social connections that serve specific functions rather than providing emotional intimacy. They may have work colleagues, activity partners, and acquaintances, but few truly close relationships outside of romantic partnerships. Level 4. Individuals often appear successful externally while maintaining minimal genuine social connections. Their relationships tend to be functional rather than emotional, serving practical purposes or social expectations while providing little genuine companionship or emotional support. Level 5 avoidants may achieve significant external success while remaining profoundly isolated emotionally from all relationships. They can maintain professional relationships, family connections, and even romantic partnerships while being fundamentally absent from authentic emotional exchange in any context. These functioning patterns help explain why avoidant attachment often goes unrecognized by others, and sometimes even by the individuals themselves. External success can mask profound internal emptiness and relationship dysfunction, making it difficult to identify the need for therapeutic intervention. The partner, selection, and relationship dynamics. Each level of avoidant attachment tends to attract and select specific types of partners who either complement their defensive strategies or challenge them toward growth. Understanding these attraction patterns reveals the unconscious relationship dynamics that develop across different avoidant levels. Level 1, avoidants often attract secure partners who can provide the consistency and patience needed for gradual emotional development. These relationships have high success potential when both partners understand attachment dynamics and commit to growth and understanding. Level 2. Individuals frequently find themselves with anxiously attached partners who are drawn to their selective emotional availability but become frustrated by their emotional distance. These relationships can succeed with therapeutic support, but often become cyclical patterns of pursuit and withdrawal. Level 3 avoidants commonly attract partners who either share their preference for emotional distance or who have codependent tendencies that enable their avoidant patterns. These relationships may appear stable while lacking genuine emotional intimacy and growth potential. Level 4. Individuals often end up with partners who accept severe emotional limitations, either due to their own attachment issues or because they mistake emotional unavailability for strength or independence. These relationships typically involve significant emotional neglect and dysfunction. Level 5 avoidants may attract partners who are also emotionally disconnected, creating relationships that appear functional while involving two fundamentally isolated individuals sharing space rather than genuine partnership. These relationships often resemble business arrangements more than emotional bonds. Understanding these attraction patterns helps explain why avoidant individuals often find themselves in relationships that reinforce rather than challenge their defensive patterns. Breaking these cycles often requires conscious choice and therapeutic intervention to develop attraction to healthier relationship dynamics. The recovery trajectories and healing timelines. The healing process for avoidant attachment follows predictable trajectories that vary significantly based on the level of defensive organization and the type of therapeutic intervention received. Understanding these recovery patterns helps set realistic expectations for healing timelines and therapeutic outcomes. Level 1 avoidants often show rapid progress in therapy and relationships when provided with consistent, patient support. Their healing may occur within months to a few years of focused therapeutic work, with significant improvement in relationship capacity and emotional availability. Level 2. Individuals typically require longer therapeutic engagement, with progress occurring in waves of development, followed by periods of consolidation. Their healing often takes several years of consistent therapeutic work with gradual expansion of emotional capacity and relationship skills. Level 3 avoidants generally need intensive, long-term therapeutic intervention with healing occurring slowly over multiple years. Their progress often involves addressing underlying trauma before attachment work can be effective, requiring specialized therapeutic approaches and significant time investment. Level 4 individuals require highly specialized therapeutic intervention with healing timelines measured in years or decades. Their recovery often involves rebuilding basic emotional awareness and trust before attachment patterns can be addressed, requiring extraordinary therapeutic skill and patience. Level 5. Avoidants face the most complex healing challenges, with recovery requiring intensive, specialized treatment that may take decades of therapeutic work. Their healing often involves reconnecting with dissociated parts of themselves and rebuilding fundamental emotional and relational capacities. These healing trajectories emphasize the importance of appropriate therapeutic matching and realistic expectations for recovery timelines. Higher levels of avoidant attachment cannot be healed quickly or through conventional therapeutic approaches, requiring specialized intervention and extraordinary commitment to the healing process. Understanding the 5 levels of avoidant attachment provides crucial insight into the complexity and variability of these defensive patterns while maintaining realistic hope for healing and transformation. Each level represents a different degree of wounding and defensive organization, requiring different therapeutic approaches and healing timelines. Whether working with Level 1's mild defenses or Level 5's complete disconnection, the human capacity for healing and growth remains, requiring only the right combination of safety, skill, and sustained commitment to unlock the potential for authentic connection that exists within every defended heart. Recognition of these levels allows for more precise therapeutic intervention and more realistic expectations for partners and family members seeking to understand and support their avoidant loved ones on their healing journey.